desk is hot. I'm calling this meeting to order.
Can we pull it up on the screen? There we go. Thank you.
Trustee Chen Lao,
Here.
Trustee Gibson, Trustee Kwong,
Here.
Trustee Martin,
Here.
Trustee Osterling,
Here.
Trustee Silver,
Here.
Trustee Wong,
Here.
Student Trustee Gomez.
Do we have any public comment on closed session agenda items?
We do not.
We will now recess to closed session.
You have to read
I need to reopen the meeting because I did not read the closed session item, so let me do that. Government Code 54957, Public Employee Appointment, Dean, Enrollment Services, Assistant Director, Enterprise Application Services, Acting Ground Supervisor. 2, Government Code 54957.6, Conference with Labor Negotiators, Agency Designated Representative Robert Belinsky, Assistant Superintendent, Vice President, Human Resources. 3, Government Code 54957, Evaluation of Employee, Superintendent, President. Calling this meeting to order. There are no action to report from the closed session.
Trustee Chen Lao,
Here.
Trustee Gibson,
Here.
Trustee Kwong,
Here.
Trustee Martin,
Here.
Trustee Osterling,
Here.
Trustee Silver,
Here.
Trustee Wong,
Here.
Student Trustee Gomez.
Present.
The land acknowledgement. I will have Student Trustee Gomez to read the land acknowledgement.
Pasadena City College is a learning community with the indigenous homelands of people who have been known as the Gabrieleño, Band of Mission Indians of the Xixiquanga Village, and Quiche Nation. Today we acknowledge the painful history of genocide and forced removal from this land on which we gather. Let's take a moment of silence of the important contributions of the stewards of this land who came before us. PCC and its faculty, staff, and students recognize that we're all simultaneously teachers, learners, and guests on these lands. This land acknowledgement is a small part of an ongoing process of working to be in good relationship with the people of the land and embodying equity in our practices and policies. Thank you.
The Pledge of Allegiance. Trustee Gibson, would you take us through the Pledge of Allegiance?
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Certification of signatures.
Well, that has already been signed by everybody. It just needs to be accepted.
I accept it.
So you should have a motion.
Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the certification of signatures?
So moved.
Second.
Resolution 734.
Oh, should we vote on?
Oh, yes. Student Trustee Gomez,
Oh, we just.
all in favor? Aye. Okay. All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Resolution 734, authorizing, can you go back, please? Resolution 734, authorizing remote teleconference meetings of the Board of Trustees, its regular committees, and other college bodies as required by the Brown Act. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Approval, reordering of agenda items. Are there any items to reorder? Can I have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda items.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstention? Okay. Hearing none. Okay. Introductions and recognitions.
Yes, I have I'd like to introduce 4 of our new deans who are here with us, and I'm going to have each one come up and just say a couple of words. So the first is Dr. Veronica Jaramillo from Natural Sciences.
So hello, I'm very excited to be here in this role. I served as a faculty member in the Natural Sciences for 10 years and as a vice president of the Academic Senate, and I'm excited and thankful to have this role to lead student success in a different way. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Jaramillo. Next is Dr. Solomon Cross, who is our Dean of PCA, which is Performing and Communication Arts, by the way.
Okay, thank you.
Members of the Board of Trustees, President Andrew Jonas, members of the Executive Cabinet, and members of the community. I'm excited to be here as the Dean of Performing and Communication Arts. Over the last 7.5 days, I've met a lot of students and faculty as we start to think about reimagining the programs in our areas to help our students serve the community. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'm excited to get started.
Great, thank you. Mr. Matthew Barboza, who is our Dean of Business and Enrollment Management.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matthew Barboza. I come from Moreno Valley College. I taught there for 18 years. Copper Mountain College for 2 years as a dean. And now I'm here to serve in the capacity of Dean of Business and Enrollment Management. I was a Lancer in grade school. I was a Lancer in high school. And now I really feel like I've come full circle. I'm a Lancer again. So I'm here to serve.
Excellent, thank you. And last but not least, I'm always happy when I get to steal people from Bill Scroggins at Mount SAC. I'd like to have Dr. Mark Lowentrout come up. He's our new Dean of VAMS and Library, Visual and Media Arts Studies.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mark Lowentrout. As you heard, I'm the Dean of Visual Arts and Media Studies and the Library. And I'm thrilled to be here at Pasadena City College. Over the last 7.5 days, oh wait, you've already heard that line. I've come to realize what a really fine institution this is, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. As noted, I was at Mount San Antonio College for 7 years as Dean of the Arts there, and previous to that, I was Dean at the Art Institute for 5 years, and previous to that, I was actually a Vice President of Instruction on an interim basis for a year at another school. So I have a long-standing experience in academia, and I'm thrilled to apply those skills here now. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's it.
Great. Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items?
Yes, we have a few. The first comment will be from Ms. Shaganaka. And as a reminder, you will have 3 minutes whenever you're ready to begin.
All right, good morning. I wish I could be the Dean of Public Comment. Oh my God, I forgot. Oh, yes, remember now. In Carolina, the Madison County, Carolina, the sheriff, Buddy Harwood, recently initiated a new program at their school district, which is he will be implementing AR-15 rifles around all campus under his supervision. This is as a direct result of the Uvalde school shooting, and then this is a direct result of the school board, the president, the sheriff, the local police working together to improve public safety. While other school like PCC, we're talking about policy, we're talking about years of discussion without any real action. Somehow they arranged to make this happen within 3 or 4 months, and then on August 22nd, I believe, all of their school officers, their deputy sheriffs will be completed their training. And whenever the active shooter occurs in campus, they have their breaching tool, they have their AR-15 rifle, they have everything they need to make sure within 5 minutes of responding whenever active shooter on campus occurred. That is what I really call it, a public safety reimagined. That is the direct result of their collaboration around of all their leadership. Around for the previous years, I have seen that students come here, to complain about the president. I have seen the faculty come here complain about the board, and then our police chief and then our vice president, they don't really have any sort of a public safety committee, of any sort. While other school meeting, they have, monthly public safety committee meetings on a monthly basis. When we're talking about locally, we're talking about Los Angeles County Sheriff Department. They contract with local community colleges. Earlier this year, they conducted the 100% real active shooter drill. We're talking about the sheriff commanding truck. We're talking about a helicopter landing. We're talking about more than 100 fully armed deputy sheriff arrive on campus to help students practice of active shooter drill scenario. And then they have annual activity like this. But at PCC, we don't have any. Just to end my public comments with a comparison, a 12-year-old criminal can get a gun in South Central $500, but our officers, they cannot get any. That's just the comparison for everybody to remember. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is coming from Dr. Jones. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Board. My name is Todd Jones. My residence is Altadena. My job is Imaging Systems Research at JPL. At your last regular meeting on July 13th, here, Trustee Gibson asked to see a proposal that had been accepted and was up for a vote of approval by this body. The proposal was in response to Request for Proposal RFP Event Production Services 2022 to 2023. The accepted proposal came from a company called LP Virtual Production. According to Google, LP Virtual Production does not exist. Trustee Gibson is to be commended for his courage to seek access to the proposal from LP Virtual Production. The $155,000 contract for the proposal was approved by this body, a company with no internet footprint. In response to Dr. Gibson's request, the superintendent president, Erica Endry Jonas, expressed umbrage, stating it's inappropriate to have a motion to request a document. You have no right to see the documents that you're voting on. The superintendent professed her loathing of transparency further with, "This is the first time in 3.5 years that I've been asked to provide documentation at this level," and accused the board of not trusting her. In the end, she acquiesced, and the board voted to provide the proposal to Dr. Gibson. However, today, 1 month later, Dr. Gibson still has not been given the proposal from LP Virtual Production. I urge the members of this board to demand transparency as Dr. Gibson has done. Don't be bullied by those who defend the status quo operations. This is no longer a rubber stamping body. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next public comment comes from Mr. Vong.
Hello. Sorry if I come off as a little bit tired today. It's been a pretty hot day. I think a lot of you noticed that as well. I just want to take my time today to thank Trustee John Martin. Last night, I met with my friend who wanted to participate in the Board of Trustees meeting by taking part in public participation. However, she struggled to find any information or instructions on finding instructions for public participation. And so I had to direct her through the school website onto board docs and then onto policies, and onto Chapter 2, the Board of Trustees, and then find her a numbered law code called BB2345. And after going through that, it felt like going through a maze just to find the instructions on public participation, just to give a public comment right here, just to find instructions on this on public participation in the Board of Trustees. And so I emailed John Martin last night about this complicated matter, calling for the simplification of this by providing the main Board of Trustees website, the main Board of Trustees page with the contents of BB2345. And to be honest, I honestly expected a bot to respond to me, but apparently John Martin is a real person who managed to respond to me in the email. So I want to thank John Martin for his time in responding to a student at Pasadena College. And I look forward to seeing the change in the next meeting as well, in order to provide more transparency by making it easier for people to participate in the Board of Trustees meetings. So thank you.
Thank you. We do have one more public comment, but that's on an agenda item on the J1 enrollment.
Okay.
And that is all we have for non-agenda items.
Thank you. Approval of minutes for regular business meeting and annual organization meetings, number 1, July 13th, 2022. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Motion passes. Right. Board of Trustees committees and representatives appointed by Board President. Motion to approve.
I move to approve the Board of Trustees committees and representatives.
Do I have a second?
I second.
So I actually have a discussion on this because on the handout that you saw for the PCC Foundation representative, it's Christine Kwan and Jim Osterling. Jim Osterling is not an alternate. They're going to be co-liaisons to the PCC Foundation, and I just wanted to make that correction.
I had a question, comment, if I may. So I'm happy to approve this and vote for it. I'm trying to remember if we've ever voted on this in the past, or if we've just left, if our policy isn't to leave to the board president this assignment and responsibility, whereby the board could, of course, if it wanted to, bring up on this topic to not approve it or to make a change or something like that. I mean, the full board could obviously override the president, but I don't know that the board in the past has, and I could be wrong, maybe I don't remember, ever really voted on the list, or if they did, maybe it was a vote just to confirm a receipt or something. But
Yeah, John, I think that's a board policy question. And in my recollection, you've been here longer than I, the board does vote to approve this.
okay.
And then when I did this a few years ago, I did not get the document into the agenda in time. And so I read the entire document into the record for today, and I'm going to suggest that we hold the vote and then our board chair read the document into the record, since we didn't have it in time for the agenda on Friday.
So I feel like that question's been asked and answered, and it's my poor memory, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy to support the motion.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay. So I will read the committee assignments into the record. Committee name, Community College League of California, representative will be Tammy Silver. LA County Committee on School District Organization, Tammy Silver. You should go for the trifecta. Los Angeles County School Trustees Associate Representative will be Steve Gibson. PCC Foundation representatives will be Christine Kwan and Jim Osterling. Accreditation Board Policy Review Committee Chair Christine Kwan, Steve Gibson, John Martin, and Student Trustee Manuel Gomez. Budget and Audit Committee, John Martin, Chair, Tammy Silver, Alton Wang. Facilities Committee, Jim Osterling, Chair, Christine Kwan, Alton Wang, Student Trustee Emmanuel Gomez. KPCC Oversight, Tammy Silver, Chair, Christine Kwan, Sandra Chen Lau. Legislative Advocacy Committee, Steve Gibson, Chair, Jim Osterling, Alton Wang, Student Trustee Emmanuel Gomez. Thank you. Now, board committees reporting out. We haven't had board committees, so we will move forward from that item. D, combined consent. Can you move back for a second, please? So I can read it off the screen.
Go back up.
Yeah. D, combined consent calendar, student instruction business. Motion.
I approve consent calendar items E1 through G12.
I second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstention? Okay. Approval of personnel consent calendar H2 to H5. Do I have a motion?
Approve personnel consent calendar items H2 through H5.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none. So, okay, next one is the action.
I'm sorry, can I just make a quick comment on, I think, what we just approved?
Sure.
So I think we just did the personnel items, correct?
Yes.
Including retirements. And we did have several pretty key retirements names come through on this. And obviously, Abraham Naeem, who's been with us for 18 years. Judith Benson, 23 years. But I have to, because I've been on the Budget and Audit Committee and had the privilege of working directly in great detail in some of our meetings with Chedva Weingart, want to put a call out that we are going to really miss Chedva, wish her the best in her retirement. She's just been sensational for the district in her capacity as our Executive Director for Fiscal Services. I think you're going to have a big hole to fill over there. So, and obviously there's some, but those were the 3 retirements, but in particular, I just had to make a call out to Chedba and Ibrahim and for some great service. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Martin, for those comments. Can we move back one more to I so I could read the title? Whoever is rolling this is doing it so quickly that I can't catch up. So I is action items recommended for approval. 1, approval of Juneteenth. Can we do all 3 together, or do we need to do each one separately?
Well, I'll make a motion to approve items I 1 through 3.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay, hearing none, motion passes. Okay. Information items. J, we have a public comment on the information item.
Yeah, we have a public comment on the enrollment item here on J1 from Ms. Michelson. You have 3 minutes whenever you may begin.
Okay, good evening. I wanted to give you a report from a faculty perspective that I'm sure you won't be getting otherwise. But first, congratulations to the new and returning trustee members, and welcome to PCC. It's a refreshing change to have you here. As a professor here, I'm not paid to research or crunch numbers or show you a PowerPoint, though if administrators want to take over my grading, student advisement, prepping, and teaching, I'd certainly be able to do more tonight than just speak to you in my allotted 3 minutes. I wanted to talk about the enrollment management strategies. I encourage the board to please ask for a comparison and fuller explanation of what strategies were used last year and what are going to be done differently. What does centralized scheduling mean, for example, and what was done before, and how specifically has that helped in the past raise up numbers? In other words, where's the accountability? What I don't see on the list on the agenda is asking students what they want in terms of class delivery, like hybrid, online, or face-to-face. The entire college is poised to provide synchronous Zoom or asynchronous 24/7 classes via computer, with many faculty willing and able to do so. So why wouldn't those types of offerings be increasing? I don't see that on the agenda. Let's see, what campus-wide student data has been gotten on that? In the non-credit department, thanks to the spearheading efforts of faculty, we implemented a survey to current and prospective students at the Foothill campus, and were able to determine their preference for online courses. And then now those are filling up more than the face-to-face ones. About international student enrollment, which we all know is important, and it's the cash cow of colleges, since their tuition is much more than in-state students, and it goes right into the general fund. I wanted to bring that up because that is in my field. PCC used to have a dedicated ESL center with a curated selection of materials developed and run by ESL professors. Now that's been subsumed into a larger writing center, and there's no place for ESL students to get the support they need for reading, listening, and speaking, and also gathering and meeting others. This is a one-size-all approach, and it's not conducive to promoting student equity. I think something like that could benefit international students. My point being that it would be good to have specific offerings to them and specialized student support, since we are taking all their money and putting it into the general fund. I'd also like to suggest adding to the list of strategies of the following: increasing communication with faculty who know what students need. Reinstate the languages division. For the last 6 months, there hasn't been a dean, and now the English division is even bigger and maybe more unruly and putting extra pressures on the fewer people. Make the online enrollment process for foreign speakers more clear and streamlined, and for that, also native English speakers. It's pretty tricky.
Ms. Michelson, thank you, but your time has expired.
Okay, thank you.
And that's all public comments we have for this item.
Now we have the enrollment report.
Thank you all very much. Hi, board members and members of the public. My name is Dr. Cynthia Olivo, Assistant Superintendent Vice President of Student Services here, and I'll be presenting an enrollment report for the college. You can see here that as of this morning, we have 18,354 credit students enrolled in our courses and 1,050 non-credit students enrolled. And when we look at our full-time equivalent students, we have 5,069, and the number of course sections that we have available by the different modalities are also displayed for you here. Some of the enrollment management strategies that Dr. Laura Ramirez has implemented include centralized scheduling. What this means is that each of the 13 division offices will be working with a centralized process with the scheduling department located in the main administration building. And in this way, we'll be able to monitor course fill rates and make adjustments as necessary, providing time for the deans to work with their divisions to make sure we have year-long planning in place, to have schedules available so that students can see for an entire year which courses will be offered to them. We are also going to move up registration dates, and this will help our high school students so that as they are excited about finishing high school in May and June, they're already registered in April for their PCC courses. And then Dr. Ramirez wanted me to make sure to mention that in non-credit, they have been marketing for high school credit recovery program, as well as ESL, and expanding dual enrollment all the way to middle school, which is very exciting. And in my area, student services, we've been working collaboratively with the marketing area, and we had 155,000 postcards go out to everyone in the Pasadena area community college district. So please check your mailboxes, and you'll see that we have this message going out. We'll help you break barriers by removing them. In addition to an awesome education, look at everything you'll get from PCC. From a $200 bookstore credit to a free U-Pass for travel on metro, rail, and bus lines, which include 10 other local transit providers, free laptop and Wi-Fi mobile hotspot loaners. We're covering student health fees and material fees. We have many courses with no textbook costs as our faculty have adopted open educational resources. We're waiving parking fees. We provide every student a success coach. We're relieving the debt for our students utilizing our federal CARES funds. We have a food pantry and a Lancer Care Center for basic needs, as well as personal help with registration. Our new marketing campaign is inspirational and encouraging for students to see our alumni featured that have been able to break barriers. We also have our bus and metro ads featuring our student alumni. And you'll see here that we've purchased digital ads in local newspapers. This alumni is now a planetary geologist with NASA, and she graduated from PCC. We're also targeting our students through social media, utilizing a contract with Motomatic. For example, we looked at 34,000 students who stopped out during the pandemic, and for the past 2 weeks, we've been following them on various social media channels, and we've been able to get back 1,000 students to enroll. So this is on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and all of the channels that our students are on. We've extended our days and hours of service, so we're open Monday through Saturday for on-the-spot registration days. Today I took Trustee Gibson down on a tour, and he met our team downstairs in the Welcome Center and our First Year Experience Center. We also have in-person orientation. We have 1,000 students who have participated so far in our program called JAM. It's a 3-day orientation, and our new students are very excited to participate in this. We also offer this online for our students who are enrolled in online courses. We're also doing two-way text messaging for students who are experiencing challenges in the registration process. And much like was mentioned earlier, students will say, is this a bot or a real person? It's actually a real person responding to the text messages. We offer support in person and online. Virtual support counseling is available to our students. And during non-business hours, we have 24/7 support via email and operators available at 1-855-GO-TO-PCC. We have a monthly Student Services Resource Fair on the last Thursday of every month from July through December. Please come out and visit us on Thirsty Thursdays. We'll have matcha tea for our students this month and lots of goodies for our Welcome Day edition. And we also have recruitment for specific student populations. For example, for our Black Lancers and our Black Student Success Center, on August 25th, we'll be hosting an event called Discover Your Village. For international students, tonight, you all approved a Southeast Asia tour. We're sending one of our staff members to visit several different countries, and we're hopeful that 65% of institutions who participate in overseas recruitment see an increase in international student applications. We're also emailing students registration reminders. And for students who are having difficulties understanding how to upload their vaccine requirements, we send them a document that shows them how to upload their vax records. And then we just review registration errors, holds, and students attempting to register. And I identify themes through our new Dean of Enrollment Services, and we help those students clear their barrier so they can register. And then we had a media release about our debt relief program, and we're so happy that many of our local media covered the story, including Charter Spectrum News, which you can go log on and read about our amazing student who was able to return because we cleared $400 of debt for him. And that is my presentation on enrollment. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Trustee Silver?
Oh, this is wonderful, and I want to tell the community about everything we're doing. Is this somewhere, is your presentation accessible to us?
Yes, I can send it to Mary to send to all of you.
Okay, thank you. It just looks wonderful.
Thank you.
Trustee Osterling?
Dr. Olivo, could you go back to the very first slides?
Yes.
Thank you. And specifically, the numbers we've registered to date for the upcoming. Do you have a point of reference, and specifically, how does that compare to last year and perhaps to pre-COVID numbers?
I do, yes. I have a report that does a 5-year comparison. We're 2,000 headcount less than the same day last year. And then, of course, you all know we were a college of 27,000 students prior to the pandemic. So we are down significantly, and that's why we're doing everything possible to increase our student headcount enrollment.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on the enrollment for online and in person.
Sure.
So we have 5,069 fill rate. And so our fill rate for online is 77%, hybrid 69%. And this is for fall. And how does this compare to last year at this time?
The comparison data for fill rates is a little tricky, so we try and compare apples to apples. The cleanest way to compare apples to apples is student headcount enrollment, and that's what we monitor at this time. The fill rate that you'll see here is based upon the section numbers that we're offering, what's the percentage of those seats that are taken by students who register for those seats. And so when you look at hybrid, which is students enrolling in person and online, because those courses are dual modality, and in person, you can see that students want to come to campus and are doing so by choosing to enroll in hybrid and in person. So right now it's kind of split.
And it would be difficult to do a comparison to last year in fall because about 3 or 4 days before the fall semester began, the faculty were allowed to choose whether or not they wanted to remain in a face-to-face class or transition their class to online. So that data wouldn't be a good comparison because that is not an option for this year. We have a schedule that's built, and so.
Thank you. Any other questions? Great. Thank you, Dr. Levo, and please extend our thanks to your team.
Thank you.
For working on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the next item is an update on the student equity plan.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kuei Dang. I'm the Executive Director of Student Equity and Success under the Division of Institutional Equity, Diversity, and Justice under the leadership of Dr. Carrie Bolin. I'm honored and excited to be here tonight to give you an update on the 2022-25 Student Equity Plan. Just a little background on the Student Equity Plan for those who may be unfamiliar. Every college submits a 3-year plan we've been submitting plans since actually 1994. Each plan is specifically purposed to address how to close equity gaps in relation to certain student success and metrics, which I'll describe in a minute. Also, every plan is associated with funding from the Chancellor's Office to support efforts to close equity efforts. At PCC, we get approximately a little bit under $8 million every year. How do we define student equity? I want to just give a brief moment to talk about it in simplistic terms. In terms of the student equity plan, we talk about student equity as parity in student educational outcomes, regardless of social identity indicators, meaning all students are succeeding at the same rate, regardless of social identity factors such as race, ethnicity, or gender. We also lean in on the Center of Urban Education's philosophy and how we address student equity being race conscious, meaning specifically we're talking about racial equity as racial equity gaps have been persistent year after year, decade after decade, and so it's a priority area for us. In meaning that we also need to be race conscious in relation to disaggregating data and ensuring that all of our strategies and goals are related to each racial group. We also look at it as an institutional responsibility and focus. A lot of times people look at student equity related to changing students. At PCC, we really want to try to change that and look at us as practitioners and as an institution. Instead of changing students, it's around how we can change our policies, practices, norms, and customs to really work for students and remove barriers for them versus trying to change the students to be ready for college. We need to be ready for students. And with that, we have to look at it from a systems approach. Of course, we need to provide students with access to internet, computers, book vouchers, all the support systems that we need, but we also need to change systems within our college to have our students come here easily, get through easily, and graduate easily. So when we talk about student success metrics or student success indicators, what are we talking about? For those who are unfamiliar with the Student Equity Plan, the Chancellor's Office has identified 5 different indicators that we measure equity with, one of them being successful enrollment, access, 2 being a transfer math and English completion within the first year. That's a huge indicator in success for a lot of students to finish. Persistence from term to term, meaning retention from fall to spring or spring to fall. Vision goal completion relates to attainment of a degree or a certificate. And then obviously transfer, how many of our students are transferring. How did we do in our last plan? So before, I am definitely not a data expert. I will refer to the IE office for that, but I do want to thank Dan Huynh, who is our institutional research analyst, who has helped me put this data set together to give you a summary of how we've done, because that's one of the most common questions on what I get about the Student Equity Plan is like, how did we do in the last 3 years? And obviously this is a challenging question because 2 of the 3 years was during COVID. So we are facing a very unusual time in terms of looking at that data and really looking at it almost with a grain of salt given the pandemic and all the challenges that it had. But as you can see here, I'm going to try to use my fancy little pointer here. As you can see here, I don't think it's working though. I don't think I can go that far. As you can see here, we have some good news and some bad news, or not so good news. So in terms of the green, you can see all the groups that are in green are groups that we have actually closed gaps for the last 3 years. So in terms of enrollment, we're looking at American Indian or Alaska Native students and female students where we've closed. In terms of retention, we've closed gaps for foster youth, LGBT students, and veterans. In terms of reductions in gaps, we have made progress in our Black African American students in relation to enrollment. We've also made progress in our students with disabilities in relation to completion of math and English, and our Black African American students, LGBT students in terms of attainment of a degree or certificate. And then within our transfer, we've also made some reductions for our Black students and our LGBT students. Unfortunately, some of the gaps that have widened within the last 3 years, even with our efforts, as you can see in red, in relation to retention, our Black African American students gaps have widened. And in terms of math and completion within our Black African American students, as well as our Latino, Latinx students, and our female students and our LGBT students have widened. So some good news and some news that we need to work on. In relation to, this is relation to our last equity plan. What's challenging is the Chancellor's Office has changed some of the definitions for the student metrics, but even in looking at that, this is the next slide. This is our new equity gaps data, so that ended in 2020. This is 2021 data, where we see very much similar gaps, and I'll just be a little bit slower in sharing this one because it could be a little bit confusing. As we look on the left side where it has ethnicity, these are the three groups that have faced the most gaps as well as the biggest gaps. And so although there's other groups that have faced gaps that we also address, these are the three that we're highlighting as we move towards priority for this current student equity plan. So that would be our Black students, our Latinx students, and our LGBT students. Overall, in that column where it says overall other values, male, that's a gender intersectionality. Overall is both male and female. All other values, this is the first year that the Chancellor's Office is actually documenting non-binary students, so that's really, really exciting. And then we'll either have male or female in terms of equity gaps. So if we look in the column of our Black or African American students, you can see across the board, it has 4 very bright red dots stating that within our overall Black population, 4 of the 5 matrices, Black students are experiencing gaps. And then also we're looking at the intersectionality for our Black male students. They are experiencing gaps in relation to transfer. Similar to our Latinx student, if you look at the overall across, we are experiencing gaps for 4 of the 5 matrices. And our LGBT students, we are also experiencing 4 of the 5 matrices. So part of our criteria in picking the groups that we'll be focused on in student equity is looking at those who have the most gaps as well as those who have the widest gaps. So in terms of just giving you a little bit of context on our student equity planning process, I reported this in the last time at the board meeting, but just to give you context, this has been a year in the making. We've definitely used a collective approach where we've worked with stakeholders across the college and the community to get input on our student equity planning process. We've worked within the Student Success Committee and evaluating the previous plan, doing the data gathering. We've also been part of a year-long learning institute called the Student Equity Planning Institute with 15 other colleges to really engage in how other colleges are learning about best practices and what challenges and successes they're facing. And then as you can see in all the different phases that I have here, I have student voices in that because we really want to center students. So we also have a student equity advisory made up of 10 to 15 students that meet monthly and really give us feedback as well as learn about all these student success matrices so they can fully engage in the process. So in phase 1, as you can see in fall and spring, we did a lot of that evaluation and data gathering. We are currently at the end of phase 2 where we have implemented 5 writing teams, 1 for each metric, to really do some goal setting, to figure out where our friction points are, where do we have to focus, what are the specific goals we want to prioritize, and development of key indicators, meaning we really want to evaluate each year. Like this document is living, so we want to be able to say in 6 months and each year, have we actually done what we have set out to do? So in this plan, you'll see benchmarks where we'll be able to say, like, has this been completed? Has this been completed? As an accountability measure for us. And again, student voices are interweaved throughout this process. We are moving into phase 3 in the fall, where we'll continue to have listening sessions and community and campus feedback from all our constituents. Again, more student voices. We'll be going through governance as well as coming back here to the board for final approval in October of 2022. Just to give you a little bit of an example of the work that the writing teams are having, we really want to be intentional in terms of how we strategize our work. You'll see 3 different components that we have identified that is going to weave into all 5 matrices. I'm using enrollment as just one example today. We are, again, being very specific to the student groups for each metric. So in this example, we're talking about our Black students in relation to enrollment. We have a specific goal in mind, and then we're using specific strategies. A strategy that will be throughout all the plans is inquiry and action, meaning the data is just the first step, right? You saw the data in relation to the gaps that exist, but we don't know exactly why they exist. And we don't want to make assumptions on why. So we need to spend some significant time as across the campus doing that inquiry work, reaching out to, for example, our Black students and figuring out what is blocking them from enrolling. In this particular example, we're looking at Black students who've actually started their application process but didn't complete. So there's a large number of our Black students that actually have interest in PCC. They maybe have done one of 10 steps in coming here, but then they didn't complete. So we'll need to be reaching out to them and saying, what are the barriers or what are the things that are keeping you from actually completing and actually being here and taking courses? So within that inquiry piece, we really, again, want to incorporate the student voice and, again, being race conscious, specifically talking about our Black students, our Latinx students, and our LGBT students, and having focus groups, having surveys, having listening sessions that are tailored to each group. We also want to identify the friction points of how to change that structure, policy, or practice, right? So in the same vein as what I was talking about before, about not really changing the student, but really looking at our own internalized structures and what is actually creating that barrier and either removing them, changing it, eliminating it, or creating a new one that really will help increase enrollment. Another theme that you'll see throughout all of the matrices is instruction participation. One of the things that we know is that students are mostly in the classroom. 90% of their time is probably in the classroom, and faculty, particularly instruction faculty, play a key role in connecting them to resources, connecting them to information, as well as providing the support that they need. So every single metric will include an instruction participation point, increasing dean participations, chairs participation, and instructional faculty. So in this instance for enrollment, we really want to increase instruction participation and outreach efforts. Most of outreach efforts are done within our student services area and within our outreach department, but how do we really bring instruction as like co-creators of that work? In terms of key performances, like what I mentioned before, we will be identifying different areas or indicators that we can report back. So reporting back to the Student Success Committee, College Council, tracking and documenting how instruction is leading outreach efforts, what's the percentage of Black students who have completed and incomplete applications, so we'll actually have numbers so we can kind of see how we're measuring progress. So again, this is an example of one metric for one group, but we'll be doing this for each of the groups and for each of the matrices. So we'll report that back in December. I just wanted to do a quick shout out and kudos to the student equity planning leads. This has been a village effort. We have about 10 members that have been working diligently over the last year, and particularly this summer, meeting weekly and helping with these writing teams and engaging in the work and reaching out to other areas and getting their input and really rolling their sleeves and getting their hands dirty in this work and developing the plan together. So, and that is the end of my presentation. So any questions?
Trustee Gibson.
Yeah, thank you very much for the work and the report. I'd like to get a copy of the slideshow.
Absolutely, yeah.
Any other comments or questions?
Actually, sorry about that. If you don't mind going back to that slide with the, I'm going to call it dots slide. Yeah, this one. Could you talk a little bit more about when we, obviously an equity gap will mean that we're not at the parity that we're searching for, but what is the scale of these gaps and in looking at the data? Because when we're looking at whether or not there is an equity gap, of course, we see that there is one, but how do we factor in the scale of those gaps, or what do those scales look? What does that scale look like? Not for all of these, but for some context.
Yeah, absolutely. This actually is going to be put in a dashboard, in our equity app dashboards on the IU website. And what you'll actually be able to do is hover over the dots and see the numbers. So that's something that Dan can speak more to. In relation to these three groups, we did factor in the largest scale in terms of the largest gaps and in terms of the largest amount of students. For example, within our, we've had gaps, for example, in our Native or Alaskan, Native Alaska students, but we might only have 8 students counted for that. So these 3 groups account for the largest scale and the largest group in terms of the gaps. But you'll be able to get that. We can send you the link because all of this will be uploaded with specific numbers. It's kind of a cool, dynamic dashboard that you can engage with.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have a question on numbers, since you brought up numbers. On your slides, I noticed that, for example, when you look at the various gaps, if you could go back to your previous slide, yes, that there are no numbers attached to how did we do with our last plan. I appreciate the green, blue, and red because that's very easy to read. So when you look at, let's say, American Indian or Alaska Native, I know that we have a small percentage population, right? So if we look at the raw numbers, if we went from 4 students to 6 students, that's certainly closing the gap, but the numbers are not significant. And if we look at African Americans in terms of widening the gap, it would be helpful to see what those actual numbers are, as well as when you look at your example of enrollment, when you say that applications, right, have the benchmark is 3%. Well, if 3% means increasing it by 30 applicants, I mean, is that big of a benchmark or do we need to increase that percentage to numbers?
Right, correct. And as we made a decision because Dan couldn't be here today, we didn't include the numbers, but they do have numbers related to all these categories, and so we can share that. But you're absolutely right. For example, in the American Indian or Native group, closing a gap could mean 2 students. Absolutely. I think in relation to our Black students and our Latinx students and our LGBT, it's at least a 3-digit number.
Okay.
So we did take that in consideration. And again, when we come back in October, all the numbers will be there. Today, we just wanted to give a quick update and not get too in the weeds of the actual numbers, but that will be shared in October.
Great, thank you. Trustee Silva.
Hi. On this slide, just curious why they aren't the same categories for each step, enrolled, retained. Why are they all different?
In terms of which categories?
In terms of the under baseline equity gaps, it's all different. Like we don't have the same 5 groupings for every.
Correct. So in terms of the baseline, that when we developed the plan for 2017, each one of those metrics those are the groups that experienced gap at the baseline in 2017.
Oh, so if we don't see them, they didn't experience gaps.
Correct.
In 2017. Oh.
Correct.
Any other questions, comments? Great, well, thank you so much. That was terrific. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Now we have the Superintendent President's report.
Okay, it's nice to see everybody again after our special meeting on Friday. The PCC Foundation has agreed to make an initial contribution of $125,000 to our official bond campaign organization. These funds will allow the organization to begin operations in advance of the November election. As you just heard, our fall semester is right around the corner. We have new faculty training that begins next week. Our professional development day will take place on Friday, August 26th, and the title is How Will We Break Barriers? And you can see that's in keeping with our advertising campaign. I'm very excited to announce that our food services will be back here this fall. We have already welcomed Cafe de Leche to the Java Hut outside Chatford Library, and our agreement with Sodexo is in place on the Piazza, which is downstairs. Our Piazza cafeteria will be up and running on the first day of classes. We are very excited to have food services back for our community as we welcome folks back to campus. Students have been doing some pretty amazing work on their internships this summer. Manuel Diaz is an intern with the Television Academy Foundation. He's one of 40 students who were chosen by Academy members from across the country. Manuel is a communications major and former foster youth. We also have David Tao is attending a 6-day virtual experience this month hosted by NASA. Community College Aerospace Scholars Program creates teams working to design a mission to the moon or Mars. One of hundreds of community colleges students, he's one of them taking place. We also have locally, we have our first-year student, Asia Chang, has been selected as the 2023 Rose Fellow, and that is an internship. It's an 8-month fellowship with the Pasadena Tournament of Roses in partnership with us, and she will hope to gain operational experience and strengthen her relationship with the Pasadena community. And so we're very excited to have that. That is one thing that's very unique about our college, that we do have this great partnership with the Tournament of Roses. I also wanted to announce that on August 2nd, a book, LGBTQ Leadership in Higher Education, came out. As you all know, we hosted the LGBTQ Leaders in Higher Education here in June. And I have 3 articles. I contributed to 3 articles in this book. And this book is a compilation. It's published by Johns Hopkins University Press. And it's edited by Ray Crossman, who's president of Adler University in Chicago. Ray was one of the founding members of the LGBTQ Leaders in Higher Education. And there are a variety of chapters in here, and each chapter has 3 LGBTQ leaders writing about a particular chapter. And my 3 areas are 1 chapter on feminism, 1 chapter on leadership, and 1 chapter on building an inclusive campus. So it's very exciting to have this out. This was a long time in coming. We had a great meeting last week with Mayor Victor Gordo and other education and business leaders across Pasadena, including representatives from PUSD, Huntington Hospital, the Doheny Eye Institute, and the Los Angeles Orange Building Trades Council. We are working on a partnership that will include developing skilled trades, both in terms of credit and non-credit programs, and healthcare. And right now, we are in collaboration with all of those folks, looking for the site of where all of this is going to take place. So it's very exciting. Our Health Sciences Division is in the final stages of establishing a transfer pathway agreement with Western University of Health Sciences Doctor of Pharmacy program. Our students will complete their prereqs at PCC and receive guaranteed admission to this doctoral program. And just so you know, the median wage for pharmacists in California is more than $160,000 annually. So this is a great pipeline to help our students get right into the workplace. And the agreement will unlock really, it's just amazing jobs. And lastly, I'd like to request that we adjourn this meeting in honor of 2 of our PCC family who passed away in recent weeks. The first is Professor Kristen Hyatt, a full-time instructor in our nursing program, passed away earlier this month. She was a caring, compassionate teacher and friend to many at the college, as well as Tommy Heredia, a worker in facilities and construction services who served 31 years before his retirement in 2009. He passed away in July, but he gave an amazing amount of service here. His wife had passed away at an early age, and he raised all 4 of their children by himself. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. Announcements by shared governance representatives and Board of Trustees. Please go.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll go. Hi, good evening. I'm happy to report that the Classified Senate has established an executive board. I would like to welcome Maurice Bowers, Administrative Assistant in ITS as Vice President, Francis Godinez, Administrative Assistant in the CTE Division as Secretary, Krizia Rexa, Administrative Assistant in EOPNS as Treasurer, and Jahi Vons, Educational Advisor in the Transfer Center as Parliamentarian. I am very pleased to be working with this talented team and body of dedicated senators and look forward to reporting out on our goals and future plans to further support classified soon. Thank you.
Dr. Cobbs?
Good evening. So on behalf of the Management Association, we're really just happy that we've launched our Lancer Guides now fully, getting our onboarding for our new managers. So that's really exciting. And we're working together to coordinate volunteers for Welcome Week wet huts for the first week of school, or at least the first 3 days of school. And these wet huts are placed around campus so we can welcome and greet and help students as they enter our campus. And I can certainly send out the sign-up link if any of you are interested in volunteering for any of those days.
Are you saying wet?
Wet huts.
What?
Like, what's going on?
What can I help you with?
I know, that's somebody else's term, but we keep it because it works. So I can send out that link to any of you who might be interested in helping out during that week and volunteering. It's a great way to get to know our students, get to know, what they're asking about, what questions they're asking. And so particularly for new folks, and I know we often have Trustee Osterling and Trustee Silver who show up and volunteer, and you can also just pop in. So we'll be there from 8 until 6 the first 3 days of school, and they'll be in various locations. And we're also looking forward to planning some community building events amongst managers as well as other constituent groups for the fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Now with announcements from Board of Trustees, I will start with Student Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. I'm also going to start off by giving the Associated Students
Yes,
report.
you have double duty.
So, thank you. So since our last Board of Trustees meeting, ASPCC has continued to prepare for the fall by meeting in person twice per week for public meetings and training. We also had our ASPCC retreat covering our strengths and weaknesses when it comes to leadership, social awareness, and ethics. Also, we reviewed our mission statement and individual duties to ensure transparency and accountability necessary for engagement and representative participation in shared governance. We've been discussing also equitable student incentives and stipends for student participants involved in the shared governance process. Also, I want to give a special shout out to Megan Staudenross for facilitating a Title IX, sex-based harassment and discrimination presentation for training that will help us better inform students about their educational rights and support available under federal and institutional law. So thank you, we appreciate you for that. Also, another one of our priorities has been programming. We're excited to inform you all about our upcoming events. We'll be presenting our first movie night this summer with the Minions movie. Not the new one, but it might be a series. It's still in the works. But that will be tomorrow, August 11th at 6 p.m. here in the Krevling Lounge. Please join us, invite your family and friends. There will be free food, snacks, and refreshments, including vegan options. Second, also, Welcome Week at the Quad during the first week of classes, beginning on the 29th of August through September 1st. We aim for students to get a feel of what they can expect for the rest of the year and offer navigational support. We will be joined by various student services and support programs to table and provide information and resources. Swag will be available with our brand for students currently going through logistics process. There will be food, snacks, and refreshments provided as well. We'll make sure to also provide snacks and refreshments for the Rosemead and Community Education Center campuses. So look out for that. We'll also be hosting our Interclub Council Student Club Rush on the second week of September. So that'll be on the 13th and 14th, and Constitution Day on the 15th. There we'll be having voter registration available, and other essentials. Expect events on Latine, Heritage Month celebrations, basic needs, and environmental justice through sustainable practices and technologies. Lastly, we've been engaging with our student peers and local PC community to ensure advocacy is available that supports current and prospective students at Pasadena City College. We're currently discussing the Pasadena Fair and Equitable Housing Charter Amendment that will be in November's local ballot measure. ASPC has unanimously approved bill acceptance and letter of support for Assemblymember Jackie Irwin's AB 1705, equitable placement in the community college courses. And as student trustee, I've been advocating with some of my peers serving as student trustees within their respective districts, along with a campaign for college opportunity. We had a meeting recently with Senator Portatino and his staff to emphasize our student experiences and support for AB 1705. This morning I also had a meeting with Senator Portatino's district rep in order to give a final nudge about our support for AB 1705 before appropriations meets. I look forward to participating in the following subcommittees I've been appointed to: accreditation, board policy review, legislative advocacy, and facilities. And tomorrow I will be heading to San Francisco for the Community College League of California Student Trustees Workshop. So I will be networking with my peers there and learning new info to be implemented in my capacity. Thank you, Mary, for arranging the trip and keeping me up to date. Thank you. That's my report.
Thank you. Trustee Gibson.
Thank you. I wanted to call out staff that have given me tours and introduced me to the campus. So I really want to thank all the staff who've been involved in orienting me to the campus and meeting staff and faculty. I'm really pleased to see the outreach that's going on into the community. I think it's really important that we reach out into the community and increase our outreach to the community, and that will be really important as we roll out the bond issue, that we really need support in the community. So thanks for all the work that's going on.
Trustee Kwan.
Great. Yes, I had a wonderful opportunity to spend some time with Ms. Jones. Thanks so much for that wonderful campus tour and introducing me to the facilities, but not only that, showing me the areas that the bond measure is going to be extremely relevant for. So thank you so much for that.
Trustee Silver.
Yes. I would like to tell everybody about an amazing jewel that PCC has, and that is our Child Development Center. I'm part of, Kabul fell almost a year ago today on August 15th, and I think you remember those scenes. Well, there was a family, a mom and a dad, and two little preschool girls that escaped, I'm sorry if I start crying, that escaped from Afghanistan. Each was allowed 5 kilos. They left their families, they left their friends with 5 kilos of their worldly possessions. They stayed in bases overseas, and then they came to Pasadena in February. The dad spoke a little bit of English, and the mom spoke none. And we found that PCC offered outstanding ESL classes and enrolled them. But like any student, in order to go to class, what do you do with your children? And here were 2 little girls that had been through so much. And we found PCC's Child Development Center. And what a lovely, peaceful, supportive, nurturing, and loving place. I want to extend kudos to the director, Brenda Trejo, and to the girls, thank you, and to the girls' teacher, Nympha Williams, who have just made these girls blossom. They are sparkling and cheerful. They sing songs, and the littler one is picking up Spanish. So thank you to PCC for taking such good care of this family, and they are on a good path, and love to all of the people that help them.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Wine?
Thank you. I want to also echo what some of my fellow new trustees have mentioned about the great information we've been provided on. I've had the pleasure to be on a facilities tour led by Ms. Jones and Richard Lorette, and that's really opened my eyes. That really helped, I think, made the decision we made last week about putting a bond on the ballot much more straightforward, because it's clear that, as great of a campus that we are on right now, there is improvements that we want to be able to do. And I'm looking forward to continuing these conversations and meeting more folks on campus. And, I want to make sure that everybody knows that, I want to be as accessible as possible here on campus, as well, of course, for my community. I just returned from DC for the Association of Community College Trustees GLI Governance Leadership Institute, which is a really fascinating perspective into not just community colleges and the history of community colleges, but of course also how we can best engage as trustees. And I'm really looking forward to the work that we have coming down the line. So thank you all.
Trustee Mark?
Thank you. I'm sure, as all the trustees know, each week we get comments from staff and from the community on different events that are occurring at PCC. And as a member of a policymaking body, I personally or individually as trustees, we don't really have any authority to act on most of these, but what we do have is direct communication to our superintendent president, who does know exactly where each one of these issues needs to fall. And so in the case of last night and our student, Tony Bong, who I really appreciated, brought this issue to our attention. I read what he said. I actually tried to follow what he tried to follow, and I said, boy, he's got this absolutely right. This is really hard. He's really found something here where we need improvement. And so didn't take long for me to just loop Dr. Andrew Jonas immediately in, and then this morning she immediately responded and things are starting to move. It's going to take us, I'm guessing, a few weeks before we may see results on that. I do look forward to getting a communique that I'm sure we can share together, that go look again and see if it's any better.
Well, Alex is returning from vacation today and is probably watching this meeting
Yes.
as we speak, and he was CC'd on the email, so I think he understands how important it is.
Yeah, and I
stay
appreciate
tuned.
that. It was really good and I think it's really gracious of our community members coming forward with really good ideas. Similarly, we get occasionally this week, we got a staff member who is having a problem with their supervisor. I didn't feel at liberty yet on this one because I didn't know that the individual that contacted me wanted the superintendent's knowledge on this, but so I'm kind of openly saying that I'm between a rock and a hard place, because the only appropriate thing for me to do is to make sure that the superintendent is aware of this, that the proper process is followed, and this particular complaint, there were certain levels that haven't yet transpired that needed to be transpired between that person's supervisor and the chain of command, and ultimately the Board of Trustees, because we are the Board of Final Appeal, and it'd be premature for me to get too involved. So I ask when I get these things that I first appreciate hearing both places where we need complaints or if there's things going amiss, but realize that it's my responsibility in this process to inform the superintendent. And so to ask for anything to be confidential from the superintendent, you kind of tied my hands to where I really can't help you. I do also appreciate our superintendent following up with each of these and informing us where they are in the process of following through the chain and realizing some of these things take several weeks. And in this particular case, there's several levels that would need to appropriately go through to resolve this issue between this individual and their supervisor. So, and we would hope that that would all happen at the lowest possible level. So this is kind of a general statement of appreciation. And I didn't know Tony was coming tonight, but it's a great example of how it does work. and how we really can't work unless we are given the liberty to at least inform the one employee that reports to us, which is the superintendent. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Trustee Osterling?
Thank you. Last Friday, we gathered here and voted to approve a ballot initiative. And of course, the college district resources by election law are not allowed to be used for that campaign. And so that's where the PCC Foundation comes in. And they met on Monday night to formally approve their role. And I want to report back, I attended that meeting, and not only did they unanimously approve taking up the banner and running with it for the campaign, but they did so enthusiastically, and as Superintendent Androgianis reported, they authorized in advance, but they also authorized the full amount of funds that they're allowed to contribute towards this effort by tax law and election law as well, and also offered their enthusiastic support. So I believe that the ball is rolling. Our board approved the measure to go on the ballot, and I think with the foundation leading the charge, we're looking forward to a successful outcome in November for that ballot initiative. Thank you.
So for my report, I'd like to commend my colleagues for voting yes to pass the bond resolution, that we all recognize the importance of this bond to move PCC forward and to continue to invest in excellence at PCC. So thank you to my board colleagues. I had the honor of signing the board resolution, which is now at the county registrar's office, which has been now notarized, and it will be officially on the ballot in November. I would also like to thank the PCC Foundation Board for approving the funds to support the campaign, especially recognizing my fellow colleague Jim Osterling, who's been the PCC liaison. Also joining us in that meeting was Trustee Wang as well, and so it was great to see the representation of trustees at the PCC Foundation board meeting. And that is it for my report. So we have now proposed future board business meeting dates. Yes.
I would like to ask that we move our retreat back an hour to begin at 10 to end at 3 to allow trustees to participate in the Homeboy 5K. This will let us come showered to the retreat, so it might be in everybody's best interest.
So I actually have, pertaining to our board retreat as well, that if we may also explore October 1st or October 15th as options, because as we speak to some of our potential facilitators, they're also asking for second and third option dates if they're not available September 24th. So
Trustee Chen-Lau, could you repeat those optional alternative dates again?
would be, if I may ask you to hold October 1st and October 15th, but the first being the preference, because we don't want it to move it further into October.
I just want to point out that that October 1st is the day of the Black Family Reunion, and that is scheduled from 2 in the afternoon until 7 here on campus. We are expecting and hoping for up to 2,500 people to be here. And so should you choose that day, just know that I, and probably, hopefully, all of you will also want to participate on that day. So please know that if you choose that day, expect it to be a very long day.
Yes.
What were the hours again?
It's 2 to 7, I believe. Is that correct?
That's for the reunion.
The reunion, so you would need to meet.
Early, we would need to meet probably 8 to 2.
What reunion is this?
The Black family, the Black
Would somebody like to speak more about it?
Sure. This is a large community outreach event that we are hosting to draw our African American community members as well as prospective students to the campus. And so we have a campus-wide committee that's been working on this event. We're really looking forward to it. And Trustee Silver, it's similar to the Latina, Latinx event that you attended where we had soccer players here from Mexico. So we're doing one for our African American community.
So we're looking at September 24th, 10 to 3 as an option, and October 1st, 8 to 2 as an option. So please hold those 2 dates and times on your calendar. Okay. Great. Thank you. Proposed future agenda items. Okay. So I have a proposed future agenda item, which is establishing a DEI board committee. So that would be the proposed future agenda item. Okay. All right. Okay. So now we have adjournment, and I'm glad that we will be done before 7:45. So may I have a motion to adjourn in the memory of Professor Kristen Hyatt and Tommy Heredia, and I also would like to add Councilmember John Kennedy as we memorialize him.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Abstention? Well, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Sandra, what was the September?